Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. In the quiet moment before night falls, when the sun lowers its voice and slips behind the curve of the world, something soft and silent takes place. The sky does not simply go dark, it exhales. The last rays of sunlight stretch far and thin, scattering through leaves, glancing off rooftops, brushing gently over the backs of clouds. These are not just beams, they are old travellers, photons, tiny messengers of energy, that have journeyed for 8 minutes from the heart of the sun to arrive here, at this very edge of evening. These photons are not alive, but they act with purpose. They carry warmth, colour, and clarity. They bounce from molecules, awaken flowers, guide birds, and stir human skin with the memory of warmth. In the late light they are fewer, longer, and redder. The blue light has scattered away. What remains is a hush, amber and crimson, gold and rust, folding the world into stillness. Photons do not sleep, but we do. And yet, as night begins, the last light teaches us how to slow down, how to dim ourselves gently, like the sky. Light, at its core, is an oscillation, a vibration in electric and magnetic fields, weaving through the emptiness at the speed of thought. These waves do not carry mass, yet they carry energy. They move without rest, unless stopped. During the day, they arrive in waves so fast and plentiful that we see the world in vivid shapes and contrasts. But when the sun sets, these waves become sparse. The photons come less frequently. Space between them grows wide like breaths drawn in sleep. Some of the last light we see before night is not just sunlight. It is reflected light. The clouds reflect it. The atmosphere bends it. Even the moon, quiet and pale, borrows the sun's fire and gives it back in silver whispers, and so even in darkness, we are never truly without light. There is always some photon, old or young, slipping between atoms, touching a wall, bouncing off a lake, waiting to be noticed by an eye or a leaf or a lens. Photons are not like grains of sand, they are not like drops of water. They are something stranger, packets of energy that move like waves, but arrive like particles. Each one is born in a place of fire, in the heart of a star or in a spark here on Earth, and flings itself outward without aim. Some are lost in space forever, some strike dust, glass or bone, some are caught by chance right at the moment you look up from your window and see a single glint on the horizon. As the last photons of day move across the land, they create the hour we call twilight. In this hour the world seems softer. Edges blur, shadows stretch, the sharp colours of day become watercolour. It is not just light fading, it is a transition, a ceremony of change. The day ends not with a switch, but with a drift. The photons that still touch us are angled, slanted, sliding along the edge of the Earth's shadow. They are survivors of a long journey. They are the remnants of a blazing noon, slowly yielding to rest. In this gentle unravelling of day, our minds also change. The pineal gland begins to secrete melatonin, that silent signal of night. Our pupils widen, our brains grow quiet. The photons that once flooded our vision now trickle in, soft and slow. We are no longer built to chase, we are ready to dream. And still in that final flicker, perhaps a golden ray caught in the curve of glass, or the faint glow behind a distant cloud, we glimpse the last breath of sunlight. There is something holy about this, not in a religious sense, but in the stillness it brings. For a moment, all things seem suspended. Even noise grows dim. These photons, the ones that leave last, hold more than light. They carry the memory of the day, the laughter, the labour, the movement, the motion. As they touch us one final time, they remind us that light is not just what lets us see. It is what connects us to time, to space, to each other. And then they are gone, not vanished, but moved on. Some slip into deep space, some bend through windows. Some nestle in the clouds, glowing just enough to make them blush pink or purple. And some are replaced, slowly, patiently, by new kinds of photons, Not from the sun, but from stars, from street lamps, from the moon, from your screen. The night has its own light, but it is quieter, slower, more patient. The last light before darkness does not shut the world, it whispers it to sleep. Now imagine the night not as an absence, but as a different presence, a softer one. When sunlight fades and the world dims, photons do not disappear. They change their source. From distant stars, from quiet galaxies, from ancient radiation left behind by the birth of everything, light still arrives. It is slower now, not in speed, for all photons travel at the same impossible velocity, but in rhythm. It is a different symphony. These photons are old, some have travelled millions of years to arrive at your window tonight, and you, without even knowing, catch them in your eyes as you gaze into the dark. There is light in everything, even in the dark. The walls of your room emit infrared photons. Your skin, warm with life, shines faintly in wavelengths you cannot see. Night vision goggles reveal this truth. They show a glowing world we do not perceive. Ghostly green outlines, radiant warmth from sleeping animals, quiet heat rising from soil. The night is not empty. It breathes, and it glows. When we speak of light, we often speak only of what our eyes can see. But that is just a sliver of a vast spectrum. There are photons too blue, too red, too quick, too slow for us to notice. Ultraviolet photons that burn without being seen. Infrared ones that warm without being noticed. Microwaves, X-rays, gamma rays. All are light. All are photons, vibrating at different frequencies, singing different songs. During the night, our slice of vision narrows, but the universe continues to sing in wavelengths that pass through walls, through skin, through time itself. Some photons, like those from fireflies, are created by life. Bioluminescence, light made by organisms, is one of nature's most poetic gifts. In the deep ocean, fish light their path through utter blackness. On land, tiny insects call to each other with flashes. This is not reflected light. It is born within them. A molecule dances, a reaction begins, and a photon is released. It flies into the air, carrying with it a message. I am here. I am alive. I am waiting. There are even lights inside of us. With sensitive enough tools, scientists can detect biophotons, ultra-weak emissions from human bodies. We glow faintly from within. The photons we emit are not bright enough to see, but they are real. They may play roles in communication between cells, in healing, or in signalling damage. No one knows for sure, but even in sleep our bodies are not dark. They shimmer ever so slightly like embers buried under ash, and above us, in the canopy of the cosmos, there is the starlight. Every point of light in the night sky is a burning sun, near, some impossibly far. The light we see from them is old, so old that some of the stars that sent it may no longer exist. Their photons continue the journey, long after their source is gone, like a voice echoing in a canyon whose speaker has fallen silent. To look at stars is to look into the past. Each night the sky becomes a time machine. The moon too plays its role in this quiet theatre. It reflects sunlight, yes, but it also softens it. It spreads it gently, turning sharp day into glowing grayscale. Under moonlight, shadows are not black but silver. Trees become outlines. Roads shimmer faintly. The world becomes a painting made with patience, and there is no rush in moonlight. It falls slowly, waits quietly, and leaves without sound. Artificial lights now fill much of the night, especially in cities. Street lamps, neon signs, glowing windows, all add to the photon mix. These are not as ancient or poetic, perhaps, but they are still made of the same building blocks, still packets of energy moving through space. Some people seek out places called dark sky reserves, regions protected from light pollution. There, the stars return. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of dust. It is not just beautiful, it reminds us of what we come from. Our planet is wrapped in an atmosphere that filters and scatters light. During the day, this makes the sky blue. At night, it shields us from some of the universe's more dangerous radiation. But it also creates the soft blue glow we see before true night, called the belt of Venus, a gentle arch of colour that hugs the horizon. It is light, scattered backward toward us by the atmosphere, a farewell kiss from the sun. In the stillness of night, some photons linger longer. They bounce and scatter inside clouds, inside windows, between leaves. They form halos around lamps, glows around the moon. They bend around corners, diffract through narrow spaces, create patterns on walls. Light plays even when we stop watching. It dances when no one is looking. Even the darkest caves deep beneath the earth are not entirely empty of light. Radioactive rocks can release high-energy photons. Crystals can glow under stress, a phenomenon called triboluminescence. If you crush sugar cubes in the dark, you might see tiny sparks, photons born of pressure, of tension, a reminder that even in silence there is movement, even in stillness there is light. And always, everywhere, there is the cosmic background radiation, a faint afterglow of the Big Bang. These photons have been travelling for over 13 billion years. They are the oldest light we can detect. They fill the universe like a whisper from the beginning of time. We cannot see them, but they are all around us, passing through our bodies, our homes, our dreams. Night does not erase light. It reveals the quietest kinds. So when the world seems dark and your room seems still and your eyes begin to close, remember this: photons are still arriving. They have crossed unimaginable distances to touch your face. They are older than memory and faster than thought. They carry no voice, yet they speak. They are not alive, yet they bring life. The night is full of them, stars whispering secrets, clouds catching silver, trees trembling with pale echoes of the sun. The photons are fewer now, gentler, cooler, but they are there, and if you listen closely, not with your ears but with your breath, you might feel the way light continues. It does not end with the setting of the sun. It continues always quietly, like a heartbeat behind the silence. And now we drift to the final moments of this journey, through night's light, into the quiet space where photons meet dreams. As the world sleeps, the dance of photons does not stop. It slows, like a lullaby winding towards silence. But even in stillness, the light is there. In the glow of embers, in the shimmer of dew catching the earliest starlight, in the pulse of distant galaxies too far for even our strongest eyes to see, the universe continues to shine. There is something sacred in this slowness. The photons of night do not demand attention. They are not bright. They do not rush. Instead, they wait. A single star above you might send one lonely photon through the thick of space, and that one photon might strike your eye as you lie on your back in the grass. It might have left its home before your species even existed. It might have passed through dust clouds, skirted the gravity of invisible planets, slipped between radio waves and solar winds, only to arrive at last for you. Light is patient. Light remembers. These photons don't just travel, they tell stories. Their energy, their frequency, their direction and angle all carry information. Astronomers read these messages through telescopes, turning faint glows into knowledge. They see the fingerprints of elements in starlight, the spin of galaxies, the birth of stars. They even map invisible things, black holes, dark matter, by how they bend and warp the path of light. Photons trace the shape of the unseen, and here on Earth, under your roof, even in your room, they continue their work. They bounce from book pages, from the curve of a teacup, from the fibres in your blanket. They touch the photograph on your shelf, the glass of water on your table. They carry warmth and meaning and time. Photons are not just illumination. They are time travellers, memory carriers. The light from a candle tells not only of the flame but of the wax that melted before it. The glow on your skin tells not only of now but of the sun that sent its gift hours before. In dreams we often float through strange light, half-remembered rooms, glowing corridors, faces washed in pale brightness. Even in our mind's eye we imagine light. We carry it with us, into sleep. There is science in that too. The pineal gland responds to the absence of light, producing melatonin to help us rest. Our circadian rhythms sync with the sun. Even our immune systems are tied to the rhythm of photons. Light shapes biology, and in turn, biology remembers light. Deep in the sea, where sunlight never reaches, creatures have evolved to make their own glow. In the cold, crushing dark, they spark and shimmer. They use light to attract, to frighten, to find each other. It is not just beauty. It is language. The anglerfish with its glowing lure, the jellyfish that blinks with alarm, the shrimp that flashes in patterns like Morse code. Here, where night never ends, light is the thread that ties life together. And beneath our feet, in caves and crevices, there are lights made from minerals, from movement, from chemical chants. The rocks may be still, but when struck, they speak in sparks. Even the humble potato chip bag may glow in a dark pantry briefly when torn. This is triboluminescence again, a quiet reminder that light can be born from pressure, from surprise. Back in the sky, the photons from planets like Venus or Jupiter twinkle through our atmosphere. They reach us between clouds, through trees, across windows. Some reflect from snow, some slide along ocean waves. Others are bent by ice crystals to make moonbows, rainbows at night. Soft arcs of colour born in moonlight, rarely seen, never loud. And then, of course, there is lightning, the sudden tearing of the sky, a pulse of raw energy that floods the world with photons. Even a single bolt can illuminate a forest, a city, a sleeping child's face, and for a split second, night becomes day. But even this fierce light fades. Its brightness is brief. Its photons scatter, absorbed by walls, leaves, clouds. And then quiet returns. In the coldest places on Earth, ice reflects light in strange and beautiful ways. The sun halos in polar regions. The aurora dances in greens and reds, made from particles crashing into our sky and giving off photons in celebration. Even the snow, silent and soft, sparkles under starlight, each crystal catching and bending light in its own perfect way. A million tiny mirrors, a million quiet flames. So when you next lie in bed, eyes growing heavy, remember that you are surrounded by the gentle light, the light of a distant star, the warmth of your own body, the glow of the screen that fades as you set it down. These photons are not loud, they do not push, they simply are. They continue as they always have, moving through space and skin and glass and thought. They do not sleep, but they watch over us as we do. And somewhere in the future, perhaps, a photon born in this very moment, reflected from your window, scattered by the curve of your cheek, will begin a journey of its own. It may leave this world, it may pass through silence and time. And maybe, far away, someone or something will catch it and wonder what kind of place it came from. What kind of night? What kind of person once paused to notice the quiet light of sleeping photons? Light does not end, it changes, it drifts, it waits, it finds new eyes, new surfaces, new meanings, and in this way it becomes a part of everything, including you, especially you. When light sleeps, it does not vanish. It becomes the soft rhythm behind our dreams, the pulse within shadows, the quiet miracle that never truly stops shining. Shadows are often thought of as nothing, just the absence of light. But that isn't quite true. A shadow is not emptiness. It is a trace. It is the shape that light cannot touch, the quiet place behind something solid where photons cannot pass. In this way, a shadow is a memory. It is the silent result of light's attempt to continue and an object's quiet refusal to let it. When we walk beneath the sun, we carry with us an invisible painter, and our bodies leave marks of darkness on the world around us. These marks change with time, stretch with the afternoon, disappear with the dusk, but they are always there, silent, gentle, and real. To understand a shadow is to understand light's journey. A photon born in the fiery centre of the sun travels across the vacuum of space for more than 8 minutes, reaching Earth as part of a wave of energy too numerous to count. These photons are scattered by air, caught by leaves, bounced by pavement, but some come to a halt when they meet a solid form. They cannot pass through bone or wood or brick, so instead they bend around or stop completely. And behind that boundary a shadow blooms, not as blackness, but as a soft hush in the flow of light. The shape of a shadow depends on the source of the light. A single candle creates a soft-edged, trembling shadow that dances with the flame. The sun, large and far, creates clearer outlines, with hard lines during midday and long stretching shapes in the evening. A shadow at noon is small and true, a shadow at sunset is long and wandering. It can climb walls, stretch across water, or hide between blades of grass. The changing angles of sunlight throughout the day make shadows grow, shrink, twist and vanish. Time in this sense becomes something we can see not on a clock but on the ground. Even moonlight casts shadows. On a clear night, When the moon is full, trees throw long, pale silhouettes across fields. The shadows are faint, silvered and thin, but they are there. And in ancient times, these night shadows were used by animals to hide or hunt. Light and dark have always been part of survival. Even insects sense them. Even leaves respond. Even flowers turn and fold, their petals drawing in when the shadows grow long. Some of the earliest human tools were sundials, simple sticks placed in the ground whose shadows moved in patterns as the day passed. From this, people learned to measure time, to mark seasons, to plant and harvest. Shadows became our quiet teachers. Without ticking, without voice, they helped us understand the world's rhythm. They reminded us that light moves, that the earth turns, that the day ends. But shadows are not always simple. They can become layered and strange. When multiple light sources compete, shadows twist and multiply. A street lamp can make one. A passing car can add another. In these moments, the world becomes a patchwork of faint greys and deeper blacks, all shaped by the blocking of light from different angles. This interplay creates something gentle and magical, a dance between presence and absence, between the seen and the unseen. There are shadows we never notice. The ones beneath our eyelashes, the tiny ones cast by a pebble on sand, the blur at the base of a sleeping cat's paw, and yet they are there. Each one is the result of light reaching its edge and stopping. The universe does not ignore small things. Even the tiniest block can create a place where light must bend or halt, and in that small silence, a shadow is born. There are even invisible shadows. Ultraviolet light, which we cannot see, is also blocked by objects. Under special lenses, you can observe shadows made from these unseen rays. They look different, and they fall in different places. Our skin also casts shadows on the inside. Medical scanners can use X-rays to create images from the shadows cast by bones and organs. Once again, light helps us see what would otherwise be hidden, not by illuminating, but by what it cannot touch. In forests, shadows are layered. The tall trees cast wide blankets of shade, but leaves add texture. Sunlight filters through, dappled and alive, creating shifting mosaics on the forest floor. These patterns change with the wind, with the hour, with the tilt of the earth. To walk through a forest at sunrise is to walk through art, living, breathing art made by light meeting form. These places are neither bright nor dark. They are both. They are in between. Sometimes shadows speak to us in ways we don't understand, a flicker at the corner of the eye, a shifting shape on a wall. Our minds, built to recognize patterns and faces, often find meaning where there is none. But even this has its poetry. Shadows feed our imagination. They turn empty corners into mystery. They help us feel the space we cannot see. And in space, where the sun casts light without atmosphere to scatter it, shadows are sharp and cold. On the moon, the contrast is extreme. In light, the surface bakes. In shadow, it freezes. There is no in-between. The shadows here are deep and absolute, cutting the surface into blinding brilliance and pitch-black night. Astronauts landing on the moon saw shadows unlike anything on Earth, dark, still, eternal. The line between light and shadow was like a blade. Yet even here, light finds a way to soften. Dust reflects. Surfaces scatter. And slowly the harsh contrast eases. Even the most solid shadow is not truly complete. Some light always leaks around, over, through. A perfect shadow is impossible in our world. There is always a little forgiveness, a little gentleness, a little glow that reaches in. So when we look at shadows, we are not seeing nothing. We are seeing the journey of light brought to a pause. We are seeing the shape of interruption, of presence, of boundary. A shadow is proof that something real stands in the path of energy, that something exists, that something matters. And when that shadow moves, when it lengthens with evening, when it vanishes at night, it does not disappear. It waits, it remembers, it returns. Shadows, in their own quiet way, remember the sun. Let's drift deeper now into the nature of memory carried by light and shadow. Though they leave no voice, no scent, no permanent trail, those shadows are like footprints of the sun, gentle echoes of where light once touched and where it could not. They shift with time, react to space, and bend with the curve of the earth. To study a shadow is to study change. It holds a fleeting record, not written in ink, but in contrast. And this contrast between the lit and the unlit is how we perceive depth, shape, and distance. Without shadows, our world would look flat and strange, like a page without texture. Light alone is not enough. It is shadow that gives form. Imagine a single tree standing in a field at dawn. The first rays of sunlight stretch across the grass, and the tree casts a long, reaching shadow behind it, like a quiet giant. As the sun rises, the shadow shortens, curling back toward the trunk. It's a slow, graceful motion, a daily ballet of angles. And at noon the shadow nearly disappears, tucked tight beneath the tree's base. Then as the sun dips westward, the shadow grows again, stretching now in the opposite direction. The tree hasn't moved, the earth has, and the shadow is its silent, faithful mirror. In science, this dance is measurable. Astronomers use shadows to study planets. When a planet passes in front of a star, it casts a shadow that dims the star's light, even from billions of kilometers away. This method, called the transit method, has allowed scientists to discover thousands of exoplanets. We've found other worlds in part by watching for their shadows. The same principle applies in eclipses. When the moon passes between the Earth and the Sun, its shadow sweeps across the Earth, turning day briefly into dusk. People travel great distances to witness this moment, not just to see the sun disappear, but to stand inside the shadow of the moon. Shadow can even reveal history. In ancient architecture, buildings were aligned so their shadows marked solstices or equinoxes. The temples of Egypt, the stones of Stonehenge, the pyramids of Mesoamerica, they were built with deep understanding of how shadows moved across the year. These weren't accidents, they were careful spiritual calculations. When the shadow fell a certain way, it meant the harvest was near, or the rains would come, or the gods were watching. In this way, shadows were clocks, calendars, and messengers. But shadows are not always visible. In deep caves or sealed rooms, there is no light to block. Yet even there, things are shaped by the memory of shadow, by the way they would have responded to light if it were present. Museums use lighting carefully to recreate the right shadows on sculptures, knowing that the angle of light brings different parts of the form to life. Painters, too, have long studied how to use shadow to suggest emotion, movement, and depth. The soft darkness beneath an eye, the curve of a cheek in evening light, the shadow across a folded hand, these are not accidents. They are chosen moments of contrast. Nature, too, paints with shadow. The stripes of a zebra, the spots of a leopard, the shifting colours of cuttlefish, all rely on changing patterns of light and dark. These aren't just for camouflage. They communicate, they confuse, they signal mood or health or readiness. In forests, dappled sunlight through leaves mimics the patterns on fur, helping animals blend in. In the sea, the ripple of light on scales makes fish shimmer and vanish. Here, shadows are not just results, they are tools of survival. At the microscopic level, shadows become even more delicate. A single cell can cast a shadow under a microscope. Particles, too small to see directly, can be studied by how they block beams of electrons or light. In this way, shadows help us learn about the tiniest building blocks of matter. Even atoms, when arranged carefully, can cast patterns. Scientists use techniques like shadow imaging to map the placement of molecules. At every scale, from the cosmos to the quantum, shadow has meaning. But perhaps the most poetic shadows are the ones cast within memory. Think of the room you grew up in, the way the sunlight spilled through the curtain in the late afternoon, casting stripes on the floor. You may not remember the exact angle, the hour, or the season, but you remember the feeling of light and dark, the way it made you feel safe or curious or still. Our minds hold these shadows, tucked away like pressed flowers, never exact, always softened by time. They are impressions, not photographs, feelings, not facts. Shadows can also be felt emotionally. In language, we speak of living in someone's shadow, or being shadowed by doubt. We talk about shadow selves, parts of us that we do not always show. These uses remind us that shadow is not evil or bad. It is simply hidden. It is the part of us waiting to be understood. Just as light needs darkness to be seen, we need our shadows to feel whole. They are the quiet parts of our being shaped by experience, by fear, by longing. And like the shadows on the wall, they move with time. As night approaches, the world becomes a place of shadow again. Streetlights cast long, soft shapes on sidewalks. Trees become silhouettes. Your own shadow merges with the dusk until it vanishes completely. But it is still there in the folds of the dark. It waits, not gone, but resting. Just like the sun behind the earth, waiting to return. And in this waiting there is comfort. Shadows are not ends, they are pauses. They are reminders that light moves, that the world turns, that time flows gently onward. So as the last light of day touches your windowsill and the shadows grow quiet across your floor, take a moment to notice them. Let them remind you that every shadow begins with light, that every shape cast in darkness once stood in brightness, that you too leave behind quiet traces, not of noise but of shape and space, that your presence has a weight and your form has meaning even when the light moves on. Shadows do not speak, but they remember, and what they remember more than anything else is the sun. Now let us come to rest with the final reflection on how shadows keep the memory of light. In the quietness of evening, when the world begins to fold into sleep, shadows do not disappear. They only change their shape. They stretch softly across walls and floors, their edges melting into dusk. In cities they gather under lamps, pool beneath benches, cling to corners. In forests they deepen beneath the trees, settling like blankets across the earth. And in the sky, behind every branch and rooftop, the shadows speak not of darkness alone, but of what once stood in light. They are the gentle proof that something stood still while the sun passed by. We are used to thinking of the day as a time of action and the night as a time of rest, but both are movements of light, and shadows are the punctuation between them. A sunbeam through a curtain makes stripes not only because of the light that enters, but because of the bars that block it. A child's hand on a windowsill creates a pattern on the floor below, momentary and sweet, a small sign of being. Shadows are our silent signatures, drawn without effort, erased without pain. There is a quiet companionship between us and our shadows. They follow without question, they mimic without judgment. As long as there is light, they are with us. They do not interrupt or demand, they simply reflect our existence in another form. Even animals, though they do not name these things, live by their shadows. Deer in the woods sense predators from the way light flickers through leaves. Birds shift position by the movement of shadows overhead. Life on Earth, from insects to mammals, has evolved not only in response to light, but to the absence of it. Where the sun cannot touch, life finds shape. This relationship between shadow and awareness is deeply tied to rhythm. We measure time not just in clocks but in changing light. Morning light creeps softly over the land, revealing shadows that tell us the day has begun. As the sun climbs, the world brightens, the contrasts sharpen. Midday shadows grow short and bold. And then, as the sun lowers again, everything grows longer, softer, more reflective. We feel it in our bones. This passage is ancient. Our ancestors tracked these changes to mark harvests and solstices, and deep within us, in the parts of the brain that count without words, we still notice it. Even in art, we find the weight of shadow. The painter uses it to give emotion, the photographer to create depth, the poet to describe something felt but not touched. In stories, shadow is the space where mystery lives, where secrets breathe, where transformation happens, but it is never separate from light. It is shaped by it, defined by it, made visible because of it. To know one, we must know the other. Just as we cannot see form without edges, we cannot understand light without its shade. There are moments when shadows bring comfort. A shaded bench on a hot day, a tree's shelter during rest, the cool side of a pillow beneath a tired head. These are gifts made not by the absence of something, but by the redirection of it. The tree does not remove the sun. It redirects its path. The wall does not steal light. It changes its direction. And so, shadows become spaces where rest is possible, where pause is allowed, where reflection can begin. We also create our own shadows, not just physically, but emotionally. We have days of brightness and days of stillness, times when we shine outward and times when we turn inward. Neither is better, both are needed. Just as plants cannot grow in endless sun, we too need shade to rest, to heal, to prepare for the next reach toward the light. Our quiet days, our hidden hours, are not wasted. They are our own kind of shadow where depth is made, where roots stretch deep. And beyond us, in the greater cosmos, shadows stretch across moons and planets. Jupiter casts its round silhouette onto its moons, leaving circular shadows that pass like ghostly eclipses. Saturn's rings throw patterns onto the gas giant itself, making shifting bands of light and darkness across its surface. Even comets, glowing with dust and ice, carry shadows behind them, streaking across the stars with tails that remember the sun. One of the most poetic examples of cosmic shadow lies in the Earth itself. During a lunar eclipse, our planet comes between the sun and the moon, casting a long, round shadow that slowly climbs across the moon's face. For a moment, the moon darkens, not because of its own loss of light, but because of our shape. We leave a mark on it, temporary and vast, and in that moment, we are reminded that shadows can reach across space, that they are not bound to Earth, but part of a larger, grander dance. As you sit now, reading or listening, a shadow falls beneath your chin. One stretches under your hand. Somewhere near you, a plant leans towards light, casting a thin outline across the windowsill. These things may seem small, but they are evidence of connection between you and the sun, between the world and the turning sky. You are part of this rhythm. Your form shapes the path of photons. Your presence makes a difference in how light moves through space. And when you sleep, when your body lies still and the lamps are dimmed, shadows still echo around you. The shapes you made today, the outlines you drew with your motion, all dissolve into the hush of night. But the world remembers, the sun will return and the shadows will begin again. Not the same as before, but familiar. Familiar enough to feel like memory. To remind you that every day you have moved through light. You have shaped it, and it has shaped you. So let the shadows fall where they may. Let them move gently beside you, behind you, across the room. Let them remind you of where the light has been. Let them tell you in quiet patterns that you are here, that you have weight, that your presence bends the light and leaves a trace. And as the day ends and the night takes hold, let them rest, let them sleep. For tomorrow the sun will rise again, and with it the shadows will return softly, steadily, remembering everything. When the sun retreats and the last glow of daylight melts into the horizon, something gentle begins to rise, a different kind of light, older and quieter. Moonlight does not shout the way sunlight does. It doesn't burn or blind or push away darkness. Instead, it dances softly, slipping across rooftops, pooling in garden corners, trailing along forest floors like silver mist. Where sunlight defines, moonlight suggests. It does not command the world to wake, it invites it to rest. And in this invitation lies the start of a story, not of fire and speed, but of reflection, of waiting, of a slow and graceful dance between the moon and matter. Unlike the sun, the moon makes no light of its own. It is a mirror, a great round stone hung in space, catching sunlight and sending it back to us softened and cooled. The photons that leave the sun take the same long journey, 8 minutes through space, until they strike the moon's dusty surface. There, some are absorbed, lost to the grey rock, but others bounce, reflect, scatter outward. These are the moon's borrowed beams, gliding down through the night air to touch rivers and roads and the surface of your skin. When they arrive, they are different, not because they are slower or weaker. Light always moves at the same speed, but because they have changed direction, they've touched something else, and in touching it, they've been reshaped. The moon's rough surface scatters light in many directions, sending a softened, silvery light toward Earth. That is why moonlight feels cooler, more delicate. It is sunlight remembered, not spoken. Matter responds differently to moonlight than to sunlight. During the day, objects heat up quickly. The pavement grows hot, leaves turn toward the sky. Water glitters with sharp brilliance, but under moonlight the energy is gentler. Surfaces cool, the world breathes out. The light does not command photosynthesis. It does not signal birds to sing or flowers to open. Instead, it moves across the world like a sigh. Quiet and slow. Some creatures have evolved to thrive in this light. Moths, guided by the moon's position, flutter through gardens. Owls, their feathers muffling the sound of wings, drift from tree to tree, their eyes tuned to dim contrast and pale outlines. Even certain flowers, moonflowers, evening primroses, wait for the moonlight to bloom, opening petals to a sky that most others sleep beneath. These species know something we often forget, that night is not the absence of life, but a different kind of presence. Moonlight changes the way we see things. Under it, familiar paths become mysterious. Colours drain away, replaced by soft gradients of grey and blue. The world becomes a painting, not a photograph. Edges blur. Distances feel different. Our eyes, adapted to low light, rely more on shape than detail. Shadows become deeper but also more forgiving. It is not just the world that changes, it is the way we move through it. Our steps become slower, our voices grow hushed. We become more like the light itself, reflected, softened, still. Water loves moonlight. Lakes and oceans reflect it with slow ripples, catching and stretching the light into long, glowing paths. A full moon reflected in still water is one of the quietest forms of beauty the world knows. And yet even this is not still. The moon's gravity pulls at the oceans, raising tides, shaping coastlines, lifting and lowering the sea each day. This pull is gentle but strong, like a hand that never lets go. It reminds us that light is not the moon's only gift, it also moves the world. Matter, though it seems still under moonlight, is always in motion. Trees shift slightly as their sap cools. Stones release the heat they held from the day. Buildings sigh with the shrinking of their walls. Even the air itself settles into layers, cool above, warmer below, shaping the way sound travels. A distant dog's bark may carry farther. A whisper may seem louder. The physics of night is different, and moonlight drapes over it all like a sheer veil. In ancient times, people believed that moonlight held power, that it could change a person's mood, draw out dreams, awaken secrets. Words like lunacy and moonstruck echo these beliefs. While science does not find truth in all these ideas, there is something undeniably emotional about the moon. Its light reaches into us. It touches memory. It opens a part of the heart that sunlight leaves untouched. This is not superstition, it is sensation, real and quiet and hard to name. The moon has phases, new, crescent, half, full, and with each one its light changes. A new moon gives nothing. A crescent hangs like a smile. A full moon glows with such brightness that shadows return, and the night seems to pause. These phases are not random. They follow a rhythm, a pattern as old as time. The moon moves around the earth turns, and the light changes with it. We do not control this. We simply witness it. Under a full moon, the world does not sleep completely. Some animals wake, some flowers bloom, some rivers shimmer more brightly, and in quiet rooms people stand at windows, gaze into the light, and feel something they cannot explain. It is not the same as day. It is not darkness either. It is something in between, a space for wondering, a space for remembering. Moonlight reveals without demanding. It shows what is there, but it does not insist on clarity. You may see a tree, but not every leaf, a path, but not every stone. It invites the imagination to fill the rest. It leaves room. It makes space. And in this space we find softness. This is the slow dance of moonlight and matter, not a loud performance, but a quiet unfolding. 1,000 little reflections, 1,000,000 tiny touches. The moon glows, not from itself, but from what it receives. And the world, in turn, glows from what it reflects. This mutual exchange continues night after night, light glancing off roof tiles, brushing across skin, sliding down windows, weaving through blades of grass. It is not a blaze, it is a breath. The world, bathed in silver, pauses. And in that pause, something deep within us recognizes the rhythm. Not the one of clocks or engines, but of sky and soil, of stone and shadow, of light that asks for nothing except to be noticed. Now imagine the world beneath this moonlight, not just as a stage for silver reflection, but as an active partner in the dialogue. Matter responds to light not with sound or words, but with motion and transformation. Every surface the moonlight touches gives something back, a scatter, a glow, a cool hush. The earth, the rocks, the leaves, the skin of sleeping animals, all of them are engaged in a kind of quiet exchange. A photon touches, and something is altered. A temperature shifts, a molecule stirs, a shadow stretches. This is the slow conversation between light and matter, where each reply takes the shape of stillness. Some surfaces absorb moonlight. Dark stone, soil, old bark, they gather what light comes, keeping it near the surface, warming slightly in the deep of night. Others reflect it more brightly. Marble, sand, snow, these scatter photons wide, making the whole landscape shimmer. Under a full moon in winter, the world appears almost as bright as twilight, though it is night. The snow catches light and holds it like a memory, each flake an angle, each drift a page of silver. We do not need to see every detail. The suggestion is enough. Our eyes learn to read light differently in this space, more by feeling than by fact. Even the human body in this gentle glow reacts in subtle ways. The pupils dilate, the skin senses coolness more sharply, the circadian rhythms adjust, sometimes resisting sleep under a bright moon. This isn't coincidence. Our ancestors slept under open skies. For tens of thousands of years, the fullness of the moon meant safety, visibility, a reason to move even after sunset. It gave time for travel, for ceremony, for watchfulness. And now, even in our closed rooms and electric worlds, some quiet part of us still listens for moonlight. We wake, we stir, we remember, without knowing what we remember. Insects move by moonlight. So do reptiles, foxes, and nightbirds. On moonlit beaches, turtles emerge to lay their eggs. Their journey is guided by the brightness of the sky and the dark shape of the dunes. Hatchlings later find their way to the sea by looking for the moon's reflection on the water. When artificial lights confuse them, they crawl the wrong way. The rhythm of nature, shaped by millions of years of light, can be interrupted by even the smallest human flame. Yet still, many follow the moon. The connection remains strong. And beneath the water, the moon's pull is even more profound. The tides rise and fall not only because of the moon's gravity, but because the Earth's water body responds like breath, drawn forward, then released. In coral reefs, entire ecosystems bloom on lunar cycles. Some corals spawn on the full moon, releasing their gametes into the sea in a synchronized moment of renewal. This act, unseen by most, is one of the largest reproduction events on Earth. It is not driven by clock or calendar, but by the light that bathes the reef in silver. The moonlight becomes the cue, a signal, a beginning. Even in trees there are hints of lunar rhythms. Some studies suggest that sap may flow slightly differently depending on the phase of the moon. Not dramatically, not loudly, but enough to notice if one is patient. Farmers for centuries planted and harvested by moonlight, trusting its timing, sensing its pull. Perhaps the earth itself listens in ways we do not fully understand. Perhaps it responds in pulses and flows, subtle enough to escape quick observation but real all the same. And above it all, the moon continues its path, locked in its orbit, turning ever so slightly each day, always showing us the same face. Its surface, though pocked and scarred by the ancient collisions, appears calm and unchanging from Earth. But look closely, and you will see the movement. Shadows creep along the craters, light finds new ridges. The moon too plays in the light. It shapes what it reflects. Its valleys and peaks scatter the sun's rays in uneven patterns, which is why the full moon never appears flat. It is textured, alive in its silence. There is beauty in how moonlight touches glass. A window pane on a quiet night holds the moon's glow like water. A reflection forms, then wavers with a breath or a movement. Mirrors catch the silver and turn it into soft highlights. A ring of light at the edge of a bowl, a pale gleam across a table. In these moments we see not just the light, but its memory, its path, its pause. Children who wake in the night sometimes fear the shadows, but often they are comforted by the moon. Its presence feels watchful, not harsh. It glows but does not burn. It illuminates, but does not judge. There is something maternal about its roundness, its steadiness, its recurring visit. Ancient cultures told stories of moon gods and moon goddesses, of travellers and guardians, always watching, always returning. A source of comfort in the unpredictable dark. And in poems and lullabies, moonlight returns again and again, not as fire but as peace, not as revelation but as wonder. Writers have always turned to it to describe longing, distance, calm, perhaps because it never speaks, perhaps because it says enough just by being there. In the slow dance of moonlight and matter, nothing is hurried. Everything flows with patience. The light arrives, it touches, it waits, and it leaves behind a softness that words cannot hold. The air glows differently under moonlight. It feels thinner, clearer. You may feel you can see farther, even when detail is gone. Trees appear like quiet sentinels. Roads stretch farther than they do in day. The world opens up, not physically but emotionally. It becomes a place of space, of reflection, of slow breathing. And we walk through it more carefully, more thoughtfully, listening not just with ears but with skin. Matter does not resist moonlight, it welcomes it, changes with it, answers it in 100 quiet ways, and we, made of the same atoms as stone and sea, are no different. We feel its rhythm, we glow just a little in response, we rest differently under its watch. We remember that there is more than brightness, that there is more than clarity, that some things are meant to be seen gently, and this is the slow dance, not one of speed or noise, but of a return and reflection. Moonlight touches the world, and the world answers, not with movement, but with presence. And in that presence the universe speaks. Let us now gently close this moonlit journey, drifting into the final reflections of how the night breathes through silver and stone. The slow dance of moonlight and matter is not a performance with a climax, but a ritual of return, night after night, season after season. It is the most ancient of patterns, older than language, older than dreams. And in this soft choreography, where no music plays and no applause is heard, every touch of light upon the earth carries with it a promise of rhythm, of quiet continuity, of presence that does not need to be loud to be real. The moon itself is a record of memory. Its surface, unprotected by wind or water, holds the markings of time like an untouched book. Craters from impacts millions of years old still remain, each one a silent echo of some long-past moment. The dust upon its plains, called regolith, is undisturbed except by meteorites or, more recently, the boots of astronauts. When moonlight reflects back from this surface, it is carrying not just light but story, a reflection from a surface that has seen the sun rise and set over Earth more than 4 billion times. And that light, shaped by its quiet host, travels to us across space and falls onto rooftops, rivers, the shoulders of those who happen to look up. We often imagine space as empty, cold, silent. But moonlight reminds us that even the void can be tender, that even a lifeless rock can give beauty, that even the absence of its own glow can become a gift, borrowed from the sun, translated into hush, and passed on to Earth in a slower language. The photons that strike your windowsill tonight might be the same ones that passed by Saturn, or that were almost lost to Jupiter's pull, now landing softly to illuminate the page of a book, the palm of your hand, the curve of a sleeping pet nearby. And what does the Earth do in reply? It listens, it adjusts, grass glows faintly, water mirrors, birds pause in flight, humans dream. Every molecule touched by moonlight shifts, barely but surely. The slow dance is not metaphorical, it is physical, real. Light meets matter, and matter bends, vibrates, cools, reflects. This is not philosophy. This is physics wrapped in poetry, and the poetry is all the more real for how quietly it arrives. In art, moonlight has always been the light of reflection, while sunlight is the light of action, exposure, clarity. The moon's glow is the light of introspection, of thought that turns inward, of feelings that unfold slowly. Painters have captured its silvers and blues to show solitude, mystery, softness. Musicians have evoked its glow in lullabies, sonatas, and nocturnes. Poets have written under it for centuries, moved not by what they saw clearly, but by what they felt quietly. Moonlight makes space for emotion to rise slowly, without the harshness of daylight. There is also a tenderness in how the moon follows us. No matter where you are on Earth, if the moon is in your sky, it sees you. It reflects light toward you. In its turning, it shows the same face to all who watch, from mountaintops and deserts, to city rooftops and deep valleys. It does not shine for one, but for all. And in that impartial glow, there is a kind of equality. The light that touches a sleeping bird in the branches above also touches a lost traveller on the road below. The same light, the same gift. Moonlight has no temperature we can feel. It does not burn, yet its presence cools the mind. In studies of mental health, time spent outdoors at night, walking under the moon, listening to crickets, breathing in the slow air, has been shown to ease anxiety, calm heartbeats, slow racing thoughts. This is not just imagination. The light we see, even faint, affects our biology. Our eyes detect it, our skin receives it, our brain registers the changing light levels and adjusts hormones, and our hearts, though harder to measure, seem to find peace in it. This is perhaps why moonlight has long been a symbol of guidance. From sailors navigating tides to farmers trusting its rise, from lovers writing letters by its glow to children falling asleep beneath its beam, it has always been a companion. One that does not knock or shout, but simply waits. Present, steady, soft. Even now, in cities flooded with artificial light, moonlight finds a way. It sneaks past buildings, slides between curtains, touches rooftops, gathers on car windows, whispers across streets. It is quieter than neon, gentler than LED. It is not designed, it does not flicker. It simply is. And when we notice it, even briefly, we are reminded that something outside our pace still exists. Something that moves not by schedule but by cycle, not by urgency but by turning. When you next see your shadow by moonlight, notice how soft it is. Less a silhouette than a suggestion. It is not harsh like the shadow of midday, but a whisper of shape, a gentle echo of your body's form against a paler grey. It does not define you, it surrounds you. It joins the world in saying, yes, you are here. Quietly, surely, softly, you are here. And that is what this dance has always been. The moon turns, the light reflects, the earth receives, matter responds, and in that space we walk, we rest, we wonder. Not all stories must be loud, not all movements must be fast. Some dances are meant to be slow, some light is meant to be borrowed, some beauty is meant to be soft. Tonight, as you close your eyes and the world begins to blur, know this: above you, the moon still moves. Its surface still reflects, its light still touches oceans and stone and skin and silence, and matter in turn still answers, gently, without hurry, without sound, just presence. This is the slow dance of moonlight and matter, and it never truly ends. Darkness is never truly empty. Even in the deepest night, the universe is filled with whispers of light, soft, subtle, slow-moving photons that carry with them the breath of stars, the warmth of bodies, the quiet trace of everything that ever glowed. When we close our eyes, it may seem like the world fades to black, but light continues, travelling, bouncing, touching, revealing in places our eyes cannot see. The photons that whisper in the dark are not gone. They are simply moving more carefully, less obviously, beyond the reach of quick sight, beyond the call of midday brightness. They are the patient ones, the silent ones. And yet, they are always there. Most people think of light as something bold and visible, a beam from the sun, a flash from a camera, the glare of a screen. But photons exist in many forms. Some vibrate so fast that we cannot see them at all. Some move so slowly, so gently that their arrival is more like a murmur than a call. These photons do not paint the world in vivid colours. They do not demand our attention. Instead, they slide through the world like wind through tall grass, everywhere and always moving. In the space between stars, where darkness seems absolute, there are still photons travelling, ancient ones. They come from galaxies so far away that their light has been stretched, cooled, red-shifted until it becomes invisible to the eye. But it's still there. The night sky is filled with this soft radiation, echoes of stars being born, planets moving, dust clouds glowing faintly from energy alone. We see darkness, but science shows us otherwise. There is light we cannot detect without help, light that requires special lenses, cool detectors, careful listening. It hums across the cosmos in microwave and infrared, too slow for our sight, too old for our senses, yet it is there, carrying with it the memory of what once burned. Our own bodies, too, are sources of these whispering photons. The warmth of our skin emits infrared radiation, a form of light invisible to our eyes but not to the right senses. Night vision goggles make use of this. They convert those faint signals into visible forms, turning the unseen into green outlines, glowing figures. Every warm thing speaks in light, just not the kind we are used to hearing. A sleeping cat emits light. A pile of leaves, warmed by the day, continues to whisper photons into the evening. The earth itself, cooled by night, still glows, faintly, deeply, patiently. Even in complete darkness, if you were to sit in a sealed cave far beneath the surface, your body would be glowing. Not with visible fire, but with low-level biophotons, ultra-weak emissions given off by cells during natural chemical reactions. Scientists are still studying what these signals mean. Some believe they might help cells communicate, Others think they are simply byproducts of metabolism. But one thing is certain, even in our quietest states, we shimmer. Bioluminescent creatures take this whisper of light and make it visible. In the deep sea, where sunlight never reaches, organisms produce their own glow. Anglerfish dangle lights to lure prey. Tiny plankton light up when disturbed, turning waves into glowing blue patterns. Fireflies blink in patterns that speak of courtship and location. This is light that begins from within. It is not reflected. It is made, carefully, deliberately, by life itself. These photons are born in silence, but they carry meaning. They are messages made of glow. On Earth's surface, even in places we call dark, photons dance. A forest at night is not void. The stars overhead emit faint streams. The moon, even when hidden, allows ambient light to scatter in the atmosphere. Insects feel this. Flowers sense this. Their petals may close or open based on light cues we barely register. Photons strike bark, moss, feather, fur, and though we cannot see them, they are there. Every moment is a play of presence and absence, a conversation between energy and matter, even when the volume is low. Some of the most persistent whispers come from the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light we can measure. It was formed when the universe was just beginning, some 13.8 billion years ago. These photons have stretched with time, cooled with expansion, and now bathe the cosmos in a near-perfect glow. We cannot see them, but they pass through us every second. Right now, as you read this, billions of them are moving through your body. They are gentle. They carry no danger, but they carry history. They are the light of creation, softened by distance, slowed by time. There are also photons trapped and held. In rocks, in minerals, in the walls of caves, light can remain for centuries. Under the right conditions, it can be coaxed out again. Scientists use a method called optically stimulated luminescence to measure when sand last saw sunlight. They shine light onto grains, and those grains release stored photons like breath held for years. This whisper of light becomes a timestamp, a memory drawn from the dark. And then there are the photons that never reach us, the ones blocked by clouds, absorbed by water, scattered by dust. These photons still exist. They still interact. They do not disappear. They change direction. They wait. Sometimes they find their way back again, reflected from the moon, bounced from a glacier, curved around a planet. They are part of a slow, winding journey. Not every photon arrives on the first try. Light, especially in the dark, is never wasted. Even when it fades, it leaves traces. Photons leave behind chemical shifts. They etch patterns. They change molecules. A single photon absorbed by a leaf can start a chain reaction that leads to sugar. A photon absorbed by skin can shift pigment, heal wounds, or stir cells to action. Even the softest light has purpose. Even the quietest glow has power. In this way, the night is not empty. It is full of quiet conversations. The world hums with low light. It moves, it pulses, it breathes. The photons that whisper in the dark do not call out to be seen. They are not fireworks. They are embers. They are not sirens. They are lullabies. And we, though we may not always hear them, are always surrounded by their song. Let us now drift further into the depths of night, where the photons that whisper in the dark become guides rather than just guests. These are the light-bearers of the unseen world, those that do not seek the eye, yet continue to serve life in quiet ways. Some glide softly through your window even now, reflections from distant lamps or the soft halo of the stars. Others move through your body unnoticed, passing harmlessly, carrying messages written in energy instead of sound. To listen to these photons is not to use the ears, but the breath, the skin, the subtle rhythm that lives beneath waking thought. Many of these whispers come in the form of infrared light, which the human eye cannot detect but the skin can feel. A fireplace gone cold still emits these photons. So does a recently used cup, or a wall once touched by sun. This is residual light, not in the sense of brilliance, but in the sense of memory, heat held in the folds of things. Even footprints on a floor hold light for a few moments after the step. A thermal camera would see them glowing faintly, like shadows turned inside out. The photons escaping from that warmth drift gently, without announcement, into the air, continuing the slow process of cooling. It is a language of departure, of letting go. In outer space, spacecraft use these very whispers of light to understand the temperature of planets, stars, and dust clouds. Instruments don't just measure brightness, they measure the quality of whispers. A planet wrapped in methane might emit different infrared signals than one cloaked in clouds of ammonia. A dying star, though invisible in the visible range, might roar in the infrared, releasing waves of warmth long after its surface fades from view. These photons tell astronomers about age, motion, composition, all through quiet frequencies. The Earth also sings in this soft register. Even when the sky is dark, our planet glows in infrared. The forests breathe warmth into the atmosphere. Deserts shimmer in the dark. The oceans release stored heat one photon at a time in a constant exchange between water and air. This global murmur, unnoticed by most, is a kind of lullaby for the planet itself. It is how the Earth cools itself, how it breathes out the memory of day and prepares for rest. And in biology, this quiet light goes deeper. Every cell in your body performs chemical reactions, many of which give off tiny amounts of light. These photons, called biophotons, are not bright. You cannot see them by standing in the dark. But under sensitive detectors, they appear. Tiny flashes that come and go in response to stress, healing, growth. Some researchers believe these biophotons might even act as a form of communication between cells, that your body, at its most fundamental level, might not only speak in hormones and electricity, but in light. This idea feels almost like poetry, but it is rooted in real experiments. Cut a leaf from a plant and its cells begin to emit more light, not as a cry, but as a record. A human body under emotional stress might show more biophoton activity than one at rest. This is not yet fully understood, but it speaks to a possibility that even our emotional states may ripple outward as light. Not enough to illuminate a room, but enough to say gently, I'm here, I'm alive. In caves, where no sunlight reaches, life still glows. Fungi bloom with faint green light, using enzymes to create their own glow. The organisms do not need to be seen to exist. Their light is not a signal to others, it is a process of being. The photon, in this case, is not a call but a byproduct of breath. It leaves the cell like a sigh, drifting into the cave's quiet air, joining a long chain of unobserved glimmers that paint the darkness with gentle presence. Even the technology we use listens to these whispers. Fiber optic cables pulse with carefully controlled photons, messages made of light that never grow louder than a whisper. They do not shout across wires, they glide. Our emails, our voices, our pictures, all translated into beams that flicker quietly through strands of glass no thicker than a hair. A billion tiny conversations moving invisibly through cities, across oceans, through forests, and we rarely notice. The light is too fast, too quiet, but it is there, bearing our thoughts from place to place. In meditation, when the eyes are closed and the body begins to still, there comes a moment when darkness feels alive. Shapes may appear, colours may drift. Scientists call this visual noise, a result of random firing in the visual cortex. But could it also be a moment when our brain becomes quiet enough to feel the leftover traces of light, the inner echoes of the day? Could we be sensing not just imagination, but the photons that remain, the ones that were never noticed when the room was bright? Photons, even when unobserved, do their work. They strike surfaces, they warm soil, they trigger chemical changes in distant sensors, they reveal the path of particles in physics labs by the trails they leave behind. And once used, they continue on, absorbed, redirected, sometimes never seen again. They do not seek purpose, they do not judge usefulness. They move forward endlessly in their own gentle way. The whispers of photons are not always about distance or vision. Sometimes they are about time. Light from an old light bulb bouncing between walls may linger longer than expected. In carefully sealed optical traps, photons can be made to bounce for milliseconds, even seconds, creating echoes of light. In labs, scientists have slowed light, even stopped it briefly, capturing a moment of illumination and then letting it go again. These experiments show us that even the fastest thing in the universe can pause, that even light under the right conditions can rest. And in this pause lies the secret of the whisper. It is not about speed, it is about the space between pulses, the breath between beams, the quiet that holds meaning just as the sound does. The photons that whisper in the dark do not rush. they drift, they remember. They arrive when the world is still enough to receive them. So if you find yourself awake in the night, in a room where the lamp has long since dimmed, know that you are not alone. There are photons brushing your walls, your sheets, your breath. Some come from stars, some come from your skin, some come from the quiet technology that hums behind your walls. They are not loud, they are not brilliant, but they are here, and they are speaking not in words but in warmth, in presence, in the soft rhythm of invisible light. Let us arrive now in the softest part of night, where the whispers of photons are not only felt but welcomed. This is the hour when the world folds inward, when breath deepens, and when even thought begins to quiet. It is here in this hush that the last of the day's light lingers, not in brightness but in memory. The photons that once danced on windows and water, that flickered through trees and settled on skin, now rest in the shadows, their journey ending not in disappearance but in transformation. They have touched, changed and passed on. Their presence continues in warmth, in shape, in the stillness they leave behind. Even the walls around you remember them. A room, after being filled with daylight, continues to glow in the invisible spectrum. The heat held by cushions, shelves, curtains, all of it slips quietly back into the air as infrared light. It is the slow unspooling of energy, the graceful release of the day's gathered radiance. And as this warmth leaves, it creates a soft conversation between the objects in the room and the air itself. Photons are the language of that conversation, drifting like feathered notes, unseen but full of detail. The dark is not an absence, it is a collection. Our eyes, given time, adapt to this quiet realm. In the first moments of darkness we cannot see, but gradually, with patience, the rods in our eyes adjust. Shapes begin to emerge. We see by subtraction, by contrast, by the faintest light reflected from distant sources, a street lamp 2 blocks away, a sliver of moon, the outline of a doorway. And when we think it is truly dark, we are mistaken. There are photons enough to paint the world in whispers. We just have to slow down to see them. This is also true of thought. In the brightness of day, ideas come quickly, conversations tumble forward, motion rules. But at night, when the world dims, the brain begins to move at a different rhythm. The prefrontal cortex softens its grip. The emotional centers of the mind begin to speak more clearly. Memory becomes fluid. Dreams begin to take shape, sometimes before sleep fully arrives. These too are the effects of light, the absence of strong photons allowing subtler signals to rise. In darkness, the quieter stories come forward. It is no coincidence that some of our deepest realizations come at night, that poets write best under the moon, that the edges of sleep are filled with images, metaphors, half-formed answers to questions we carried all day. The brain, free from the glare, begins to listen to its own gentle pulses, and perhaps in those moments it also listens to the light still lingering, those old, soft photons bouncing gently through the quiet corners of the room. There are places in the world where darkness is still deep enough to be sacred. Remote deserts, mountain tops, dark sky preserves, these are places where light pollution falls away and the stars return in full. There, the Milky Way is not a concept but a presence stretching across the sky in rivers of starlight. In those places, the photons that whisper in the dark are not subtle, they are many. They arrive not as individuals but as a choir, and to stand under such a sky is to feel both small and held, to realize that you are bathed in the light of things so distant, so old, that your heartbeat becomes a kind of answer to their silence. And yet, even in a city, even in a room, the whispering photons are there. They may come from the faint blue of a clock face, from the dim glow of an LED, from a neighbour's porch light flickering through a window blind. These are newer whispers, modern, mechanical, but they too move with patience. They strike surfaces. They reflect from skin. They change the chemistry of sleep. They are part of the ever-shifting field of light that surrounds us always. Photons do not choose. They do not judge. A photon from the screen you hold is no less a messenger than one from a star. The difference is only in where they come from and what they carry. Some photons bring ancient fire. Others bring information. Others carry heat. Others still bring nothing more than a quiet presence. But all of them move through space with the same grace, the same speed, the same certainty. And there are those that never reach us at all, Some are absorbed in clouds, others are swallowed by dust, some are bent away by gravity, caught in the wells of black holes, never to emerge again. Yet even this is not a loss. For their motion, their bending, their being caught, these events tell stories. They shape what we see. They draw the silhouettes of the unseen. The blackness around stars is not empty. It is sculpted by all the photons that did not arrive. In the deep oceans, light barely penetrates. Yet there, creatures have found ways to glow. Their photons are deliberate, born from biology, released as signals. Here, in the darkest reaches, light becomes language. The flashes of jellyfish, the pulses of squid, the sudden spark of a shrimp escaping danger. Each glow is a sentence, each flicker is a reply. The ocean speaks in light, but always softly, always briefly, and within us the story continues. Our hearts beat with rhythms that light can measure. Our blood carries oxygen that changes colour in response to light. Medical sensors use this shift to read our health. We are readable by photons, transparent in ways we forget. Light does not stop at the skin. It moves through us. It maps us. It learns from us, and we learn through it. When you sit quietly in a dark room, you are not hidden from light. You are simply wrapped in the softer kind. So here, in this final breath of thought, let us remember this. The night is not an ending. It is a quieter beginning. The photons that whisper in the dark are not fading away. They are settling in. They are making space for rest, for reflection, for return. They move more slowly, not because they are tired, but because they are kind. They do not demand attention. They wait for us to notice. And when we do, when we look into the dark and sense not fear but peace, we become part of their rhythm, part of their path. We are no longer separate from the light. We are its partner, its echo, its witness. This is what it means to listen to the photons that whisper in the dark. Not to see more, but to see more gently. To realize that the universe never goes silent. It only gets softer. And in that softness, there is space enough for everything. Every night, as the sky folds itself into stillness, stars appear, not all at once, but in a slow and gentle unveiling. One here, another there. Soon, a pattern begins to emerge. Lines and clusters and curves that feel like memory, though you've never really touched them. And yet you have, for when you look at a star, you're not just seeing it, you're receiving it. Your eyes are catching the end of a journey so old, so vast, that it began long before your name was ever spoken. You are watching light that left its home long before you were born. You are witnessing a photon's patient story. You are touching starlight. Starlight is not simply brightness scattered in the dark. It is history, arriving gently, one photon at a time. Each point of light above you is created in the heart of a star, an unimaginable furnace where atoms collide and fuse and release energy. This energy becomes light, and this light travels. If it escapes the star's gravity, it sets off across space, heading in every direction, without aim but full of purpose. Most photons will fly forever, never striking anything at all. But some, by the tiniest chance, arrive here, at your window, on your cheek, in your eye. It is a strange thought that the photons entering your eyes at this very moment may have travelled for thousands of years to get here. The light from Sirius, the brightest star in our sky, began its journey about 8 years ago. That means every time you look at it, you are looking into the past, not an idea of the past, but the actual past. The light you see is a record, a preserved moment of energy that has crossed billions of kilometres, passed through dust and gravity, and finally arrived to be seen. And Sirius is close. Most stars you see are farther, much farther. Light from Deneb may have left around the time humans first drew animals on cave walls. Light from stars in the Andromeda galaxy began its journey when Earth was ruled by early mammals, long before cities rose. You're not just seeing starlight, you're seeing time. Space and time are not separate in this way. Light reveals their entanglement. This journey is not easy. Photons must travel through vast emptiness, space that is cold, dark and stretching. Along the way, they may be scattered by gas, bent by gravity, shifted by motion. Their wavelength might stretch, turning blue into red, making them harder to detect. Some are blocked entirely, absorbed by dust or deflected by magnetic fields. Yet some arrive, uncertain, persistent, graceful. A photon does not know where it will land, it only knows how to travel. The moment one of these ancient photons enters your eye, something beautiful happens. It strikes the retina, triggering a chemical change in one of your photoreceptor cells. This change becomes an electrical signal. That signal travels along the optic nerve and is processed by your brain into what we call sight. But more than that, it becomes experience, emotion, thought, wonder. In this tiny collision between ancient light and living tissue, the universe completes a circuit. Something distant becomes personal. And what is even more humbling is this. The starlight you see with your eyes is only a tiny slice of what is out there. Most of the universe's light is invisible to us. It travels in wavelengths too long or too short. Radio waves, gamma rays, X-rays, microwaves. These forms of light, all made of photons, carry just as much information. But we cannot see them without help. Telescopes and detectors extend our vision, revealing entire galaxies hidden in radio, black holes seen only through X-rays, dust clouds glowing in the infrared. With these tools, we begin to realize how little we truly see, and how much is still whispering in the dark. Starlight does not arrive alone. It brings with it clues. The light from a star tells us its temperature, its motion, its age. By splitting the light into a spectrum, scientists can read it like a language. They can see what elements the star is made of: hydrogen, helium, carbon, iron. They can measure how fast it spins, how far it is, whether it is growing brighter or fading away. The light becomes more than illumination. It becomes knowledge. And yet, for all the precision science brings, there is still something poetic about looking at the stars. A softness, a quietness. Perhaps it's because they are always there, unchanged by our worries or plans. Perhaps it's because they do not ask anything of us. They shine no matter who is watching. They send their light, whether anyone is awake to receive it. They are constant reminders of something bigger than urgency, of time moving gently, of light that does not need to be noticed to be meaningful. In mythology, stars were once thought to be holes in the sky, windows to the heavens, campfires of ancestors, eyes of gods. People charted them, named them, told stories in their patterns. Constellations became narratives. Orion's hunt, Cassiopeia's vanity, the twin bond of Castor and Pollux. These stories were not about stars themselves, but about us, about our desire to understand, to belong, to see ourselves reflected in the sky. And in a way, that is what starlight still does. It reflects us, our longing, our stillness, our need for wonder. Children look at stars and ask questions without fear. Adults look at stars and remember questions they once asked. In both cases, the stars are the same. The light they send is unchanged. Only we shift, we grow, we forget, we remember. But the light waits. It continues to travel, continues to arrive, continues to touch. It is a gift with no sender, a letter with no return address, a message from a place that may no longer even exist. Some stars you see tonight have already died. Their light, however, is still travelling. It has not yet caught up with the truth of their end, and so for a while they remain visible, ghosts of radiance, still giving, still reaching, even after they are gone. In this way, starlight teaches us something deeply gentle. That presence is not only about now, that what we give may continue on long after we are gone, that light, once released, may find its way to someone else's eyes, someone else's thoughts, someone else's quiet moment. You are part of this story. You are not just watching the stars, you are completing their journey. You are the final surface, the final translation, the final echo, and that is not a small thing, it is everything. Now let us drift deeper into the journey of starlight, beyond what we see, into what we feel, what we remember, and what the stars quietly carry across time. These photons, though weightless, are messengers of the cosmos, bearing the imprint of their origin. Their language is not one we speak aloud. It's written in vibrations, in waves, in the colour of fire, and the silence of space. And yet somehow, without a single word, they speak to us clearly. They remind us that something far away can still matter here, that something begun long ago can still arrive soft and full of meaning in the present. As a photon begins its journey inside a star, it is born not on the surface but deep within the core, where hydrogen is squeezed so tightly that atoms begin to fuse. This fusion releases energy, and that energy becomes light. But this light doesn't fly freely right away. First, it is trapped. It bounces, zigzags, collides with other particles inside the star's dense interior. This single photon may spend thousands of years trying to escape and slowly moving outward through layer after layer. It is not fast, even though light is always swift. It is slowed by matter, by crowding, by interaction, until finally at the surface the photon breaks free, and with it a journey across the vacuum begins. When that photon leaves, it travels uninterrupted, unless it meets something along the way. It does not age, it does not slow, it simply moves, endlessly in a straight line unless acted upon. Some will be swallowed by planets or comets or dust, but some, only a few, will continue until they meet your eye. That one moment is the culmination of a voyage that may have lasted millennia, and when it touches your retina, it becomes not just a signal but an event, a flicker, a trace of a star that may no longer even exist. The idea that the light of vanished stars can still reach us is more than romantic, it is physical truth. Because light takes time to travel, what we see in the sky is not the sky as it is, but as it was. You can never see a star now. You can only see it then, and so the sky becomes not a mirror, but a map of memories, a portrait painted in delay. It shows us a universe in progress, in change, in transformation, and yet from our point of view it feels still, constant. This illusion is part of the sky's beauty. It is what allows us to dream. Astronomers use this delay to study the past. They peer into deeper and deeper space, not just to see distance, but to see time. Telescopes become time machines. When they capture the light from a galaxy billions of light years away, they are seeing that galaxy as it was before Earth ever formed, before the sun was born, before life began. And because of light's honesty, its refusal to lie, its pure message of what was, we learn how stars are made, how galaxies collide, how the universe itself expanded from a single breath. And all of this comes down to a photon, just one, captured after its unimaginable journey, a journey across space so vast that numbers struggle to describe it, across silence so deep that it humbles every sound, across time so long that human history becomes a blink, and that one photon lands on a lens or on an eye, and is transformed into something we can understand, an image, a thought, a feeling. Starlight also touches the rhythms of Earth in gentle ways. It is faint compared to the sun, but it matters. Migrating birds use stars to navigate. So do sea turtles, beetles, and even some species of spiders. They rely not on maps, but on the patterns of constellations fixed in the sky. Their instincts are tied to light that has always been there, steady across generations. This is not knowledge they are taught. It is knowledge passed through biology, shaped by evolution, reinforced by the sky. Humans too once used the stars as their compass. Before satellites and apps, before digital maps and glowing screens, we found our way by Polaris, by Orion's belt, by the Southern Cross. We planted crops by the timing of constellations. We told time by the arc of stars across the night. The entire sweep of civilization once turned with the stars. Even today, our calendars are shaped by their movement. Our years are measured not by days alone, but by how the Earth orbits the Sun, another star. Light and time have always been intertwined. Starlight enters art as well. Painters try to capture it. Composers describe it. Writers lean on it to express feelings too quiet for speech. Its gentle persistence, its unreachable source, its delicate presence, they speak to something deep in us, something that craves both permanence and change, something that understands that beauty can be fleeting and still eternal. That light, even if it fades, still means something because of where it came from and where it landed. We do not create starlight, we receive it. And in that act, we are transformed. We become part of something larger, not because we deserve it or earned it, but simply because we are here, because we opened our eyes, because the photon chose without meaning to our gaze. And when that happens, the past meets the present. The fire of a distant sun meets the softness of a human soul, and in that quiet connection, something very old becomes new again. That is what starlight does. It moves through space and time, untouched by borders, unbroken by the language, and arrives without permission or explanation. It gives itself freely. It waits for someone to notice, and when it is noticed, it changes everything, not in the stars, but in us. And perhaps somewhere else in the universe, another being stands under their sky, looking up, catching the same kind of light from our sun. Perhaps they too feel wonder. Perhaps they too understand that light is more than energy. It is memory. It is a gift. It is connection across the silence. Now let us gently come to the close of Starlight's journey, not in silence, but in understanding. When you sit beneath the night sky and allow your gaze to rise, you are not just looking upward, you are looking outward and backward. You are touching the ancient edge of vision, where the present meets the past and the past becomes visible again. The light you see in the stars is not just a shimmer, it is a story. It is the echo of something vast and patient, something that travelled through centres to find you. As we sleep, starlight continues to arrive. Quietly, persistently, it falls across rooftops and mountaintops, across oceans and deserts, across your hands as they rest in stillness. It does not need you to be awake to do its work. Light simply moves, seeking no reward. It drapes itself over the land, wrapping the world in subtle memory. While we dream, stars continue to speak, and those dreams too may be shaped by starlight. For though we close our eyes, the rhythms of our world, the cycles of night and day, of moon and shadow, are written into our bodies. The release of melatonin, the lowering of body temperature, the shifting of our thoughts into images, these are not accidental. They are timed to light, not only sunlight, but to the presence or absence of all light. The stars remind our cells that it is time to rest, time to let go, time to soften. It is easy to forget that we are made of the same matter as those stars. The calcium in our bones, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our breath, all were forged in the cores of ancient suns. When massive stars ended their lives in supernovae, they scattered these elements into space. Over time, those particles formed clouds. Those clouds became planets, and from those planets, life. You are not only observing starlight, you are in some quiet way returning its gaze. You are its echo, shaped by the same forces that shape the stars themselves. This is not poetry alone, this is astrophysics. The stars are not decorations in the sky. They are family. Their light is our origin story, and every time a photon touches your eye, the universe remembers itself, through you. It is tempting to think of stars as distant, unreachable, beyond us, but the truth is more intimate. Their light lives in our cells, in our thinking, in our stories. The child who draws stars on paper, the traveller who guides their path by constellations, the scientist who measures distance by parallax, all are participants in the same long conversation. One side speaks in light, the other in reflection, and this conversation has no end. New stars are being born even now, deep in clouds of gas and dust. Their first light may not reach us for millions of years, but it is coming. The universe continues to speak even when we're not listening. It does not stop. It only moves gently forward, one beam at a time. Sometimes we may feel small beneath the stars, but perhaps that smallness is the point. Not to make us feel insignificant, but to remind us that we are part of something vast, interconnected and slow. That wonder does not need to be loud. That meaning can arrive without permission, without plan, simply by looking up and receiving what was always meant for us. And perhaps this is why we return to the stars in moments of quiet, of longing, of pause. We look for patterns, we ask questions, we whisper names to points of light that may never hear us. But still we do it, because deep inside us something remembers that we are not just watchers of the stars, we are made from them, and their light, though distant, is also home. When the sky clears and you find yourself alone under the night, let the starlight touch you. Let it rest on your skin. Let it pass into your eyes. Do not rush it, do not explain it. Simply know that this moment, quiet, soft, full of silver, is the final step of a journey begun long before you were born. A photon's long voyage ends with your gaze, and in that end, something beautiful is complete. The stars do not know you're watching, but they shine anyway, and that is what makes them sacred. Their light arrives, you see it, you feel it, and for a little while you remember that time is not always measured by clocks, that presence is not always about touch, and that some journeys end not with noise, but with quiet recognition. This is starlight's ancient journey to your eyes, a story made of fire, silence, and time. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, the stars are still speaking. Their light is still arriving. Their story continues in you. There is a quiet rhythm in the way night falls. It is not sudden, not sharp. It arrives gently like a long breath out. As the last light of day slips below the horizon, something else rises. Not just shadow, not just stillness, but a sense of patience. Daylight, bold and brilliant, gives way to something slower, something softer, something that waits. And in this hush, in the stretch of darkness between sunset and sunrise, light learns to pause. It learns to rest. It learns to wait. This waiting is not stillness. It is movement slowed, motion suspended. The photons that once flooded the world with brightness now come fewer and farther between. Their angles change. Their strength softens. Some are reflected moonbeams. Others are starlight, old and slow. Some are born from within. Fireflies blinking, embers breathing out orange. Windows aglow with gentle bulbs. Light does not disappear in night. It simply becomes quieter. It steps back. It watches. Night does not force light away. It offers it a place to be small, to linger in corners, to flicker, to return to itself. In this retreat there is grace. Just as a candle burns more clearly in darkness, just as a whisper is better heard in a silent room, light finds new meaning in the absence of glare. It becomes thoughtful, careful. A single flame in the dark feels like a miracle. A porch light becomes a welcome. A shooting star becomes a wish. And in this slower space the world begins to notice. Trees no longer chase the sun, they rest. Animals change their rhythm. Some rise, some sleep. Flowers close, leaves still. Even the air feels different. Cooler, heavier, more patient. The dust settles, the wind calms, the world tilts into listening. This is not just a turning of the earth, it is a turning of mood, of tone, of time. It is the space where light is no longer in charge and where darkness is not an absence but a teacher. For in night we learn to see differently. Our eyes adjust, our breath slows. We become more aware of shape than detail, of sound than sight. A distant light becomes meaningful. A flicker becomes a sign. The world reduces its noise and in doing so allows subtler things to emerge. Light too listens. It moves with more purpose. A flashlight on a path does not light everything. It guides. A lamp in a room does not flood. It warms. In the dark, light stops shouting. It starts whispering. Even time feels different at night. The minutes stretch. The hours breathe more slowly. Without sunlight chasing us, we lose the sharp edges of deadlines. We begin to drift, to think, to feel. Light in this space is not a ruler. It is a companion. Its job is not to show us everything, but to stay close, to offer shape to our thoughts, to follow us quietly into dreams. There is wisdom in this. We often believe that light must be fast, must be strong, must fill every space. But night shows us another way. It teaches that light can wait, that it does not always need to act, that reflection, stillness and rest are part of light's story too. Fire needs fuel. Stars need time. Even electricity runs in pulses. There is no such thing as endless, unbroken brightness. The sun sets, the flame dims, the moon wanes, and in each pause something important happens. Photons still move, they do not stop, but their presence changes. Their urgency fades, they scatter differently. They find their places not in dominance, but in kindness, in subtlety. A candle beside a bed, a lantern on a porch, a soft bulb behind a curtain. These are not declarations. They are comforts. They are light choosing to stay, not because it must, but because it understands that waiting is also a form of giving. And so night becomes a kind of conversation between light and everything else, between what is seen and what is guessed, between the known and the imagined. Light waits not because it is weak, but because it trusts. It knows the sun will rise again. It knows its moment will come, and until then it allows darkness to lead. In this way the world resets, not in emptiness but in quiet preparation. Seeds germinate in darkness, dreams form in the absence of light, cells repair, thoughts settle, hearts slow, and the few photons that remain are enough, more than enough. They are not guiding us outward, they are turning us inward, into memory, into hope, into peace. So when the light fades tonight, and the sky darkens and the stars begin their long, slow shimmer, know that the light has not left you. It is only waiting. It is learning with you how to pause, how to listen, how to be still. And in that stillness it is not gone. It is growing. Night does not end light. It deepens it. And in the silence we find not absence, but a new kind of presence. One that does not need to shine to be real. One that does not need to be seen to be felt. This is how night teaches light to wait. Let us now move deeper into that sacred stillness, where light rests without fear of fading. The night, in its vastness, does not demand performance. It does not rush the stars to rise, nor does it chase the moon to full. It simply holds space for light to breathe, for energy to settle, for the slow rhythm of the universe to be felt. In this quiet interval between days, we witness a different wisdom, one not spoken but felt, one not shown through brilliance but through restraint. Light, once so certain in its path, now wanders more softly, no longer illuminating all things but choosing where to linger, where to glow, where to gently arrive. The moon teaches this well. It does not shine with its own light, and yet it is luminous. It borrows, reflects, and returns what it receives from the sun, by distance, quieted by time, and the world accepts this light not as second best, but as sacred. Entire tides move in response to its pull. Flowers open and close by its timing. Wolves sing to it, not out of madness, but as part of a cycle they remember in their bones. The moon does not rush to be bright. It waits, it grows, it recedes. And in doing so it reminds light itself that fullness is not always the goal, that sometimes the crescent holds more wonder than the whole. When we think of light, we often picture its arrival, its burst, its radiance. But rarely do we honour its patience, the way it leaves, the way it pauses, the way it gives room. In the hours before dawn, the darkness is at its deepest, and yet it does not feel empty. It feels like holding, like a soft hand on the back, like a breath drawn in and held, waiting for the morning to exhale. In those moments, the few photons that drift from stars or shimmer from frost are enough. They are not leaders of the scene. They are witnesses, companions. They remind the world that not all light needs to blaze. Some simply needs to be. And this has always been true, even in the earliest moments of the cosmos. After the Big Bang, the universe was full of heat, but it took time, hundreds of thousands of years, before the first light could travel freely, before photons could escape the dense fog of particles and begin their long journeys through space. The first light waited, and when it was finally released, it stretched across time, becoming the cosmic microwave background, a soft whisper of the beginning. We still hear that whisper today, not in brightness, but in background, not in fire, but in presence. In our homes, we instinctively recreate this balance. Bright ceiling lights are replaced with small lamps as night approaches. Candles are lit not for visibility but for feeling. We dim our surroundings to tell our bodies it is time to slow down, to soften, to wait. The light that remains is gentle, indirect, intentional. It does not aim to conquer the room, it simply joins it. A bedside glow, a hallway nightlight, a distant porch bulb. These lights do not hurry, they do not interrupt the dark, they share it. And what about us? We too are made to reflect this rhythm. Our bodies are tuned to light and dark through circadian rhythms, cycles of alertness and rest. Melatonin rises in the absence of light, telling our systems to quiet. Cortisol lowers, muscles relax, the mind begins to unfurl its tighter thoughts and drift into softness. This is not weakness, it is design. Nature intended for us to slow, to stop, to wait, to follow the example of light itself. Even our dreams, fragile and strange, are shaped by the absence of intense light. They unfold in the softened glow of the mind's own stars, neural sparks in a sea of calm. Here the brain becomes its own galaxy, lighting thoughts not with logic but with memory, emotion, metaphor. Dreams, like stars, are often dim, distant, hard to hold, but they stay, they shimmer. And when we wake, their residue lingers. light that waited for us beyond waking. Outside, the world follows suit. Nocturnal creatures begin to move, owls gliding in silence, foxes padding through brush, crickets chirping their timed messages. They do not need harsh light to guide them. Their senses are attuned to the whisper, not the shout. They thrive where others sleep, and the light they use is scattered, pale, fleeting. But it is enough. They do not need more. They have learned too that waiting is survival, that rushing is noise, that in the quiet every shadow holds a shape, every rustle carries a message, every pause is a promise. We could learn from them, from the way they trust the dark, from the way they move without seeing everything, from the way they follow intuition over instruction, and from the way they do not fear the absence of light, but instead move with the few photons that are offered, accepting them not as lack, but as gift. Night, in this way, becomes not the opposite of day, but its teacher. It reminds the world that rest is part of rhythm, that slowing is not failing, that brightness is not the only form of beauty. Some things, like patience, like grace, like presence, grow best in shadow. And so the light waits. In the flicker of a candle, in the red of a low horizon, in the long beam of a lighthouse turning through fog. It waits in your chest, where your heartbeat slows in sleep. It waits in your thoughts, where tomorrow begins to form in soft outlines. It waits not to vanish, but to return, stronger, clearer, kinder. This is how night teaches light to wait, not with silence alone, but with trust, not with absence, but with gentleness, not with emptiness, but with the fullness of all that comes when brightness takes a breath. Now let us arrive gently at the closing movement of this night lesson, the moment where light does not return in haste, but readies itself in stillness. In this final stretch before dawn, the dark is at its deepest. Yet it holds a hush that feels almost sacred. It is not the absence of activity, but the fullness of preparation. The stars overhead continue their slow drift. The moon begins its descent, casting longer, thinner shadows. The earth, turning with soft certainty, begins to tilt its edge back toward the sun. And the photons, those messengers of warmth and motion, gather quietly behind the veil of morning. They do not rush, they do not burst, they wait. This waiting is not idle, it is a kind of holding, a deep patience woven into the fabric of the universe. Even the sun does not rise quickly. First there is the faint blue bloom along the edge of the sky, the subtle cooling of stars overhead, the sharpening outlines of trees and rooftops. Then comes the glow, not yet the sun itself, but the scattering of light through air. It touches clouds first, then mountain tops, then the tops of trees. Light arrives not all at once, but in layers. It pours in slowly, like water filling the contours of a quiet place. It respects the silence it is entering. And in these moments we feel it too. The return of light after the dark does not just brighten the world, it wakes something inside us. The mind, once settled in sleep, stirs gently. The breath grows longer. The heart begins its upward swing, even the shadows grow more defined, stretching long before shrinking back with the sun's rise. We are part of this ceremony, even if we forget it. Our lives are timed not only by clocks, but by this return. And what we feel, as the photons begin to touch our skin again, is more than warmth. It is rhythm, a return to motion. But before that motion begins, there is this brief window, a hush, a breath, a final teaching. Here, light is not yet light. It is promise. It is presence before action. The birds begin their morning songs not at full sun, but in this blue silence. Their voices ride ahead of the light, like scouts announcing its approach. Flowers, still closed, begin to loosen. The dew, having gathered during the night, prepares to lift into mist. Everything wakes not in alarm, but in welcome. The world remembers what light is, and what it feels like to be without it. That memory makes its return more profound. In this way, night is never wasted. It is not a pause between brightnesses, it is its own kind of fullness, where rest becomes its own form of activity, where darkness becomes the soil in which clarity grows, just as seeds germinate in the dark, just as thoughts settle in sleep, just as dreams rise in the shadow of consciousness, so too does light learn in the night how to begin again. And that beginning is always softer than we remember. Never a flare, always a glow. Even inside our homes, this rhythm finds its place. We open curtains slowly, we reach for soft lights before bold ones, we stretch before we run. The world teaches us to wake in phases, to move from waiting to doing, but not all at once, to carry the softness of the night into the newness of the day. It is a gift to move that way, a quiet inheritance passed down not in speech but in light. And what does this mean for us? It means we are never truly separate from the turning of the sky, that our bodies, our emotions, our very awareness are all tied to this patient cycle. And within that cycle, the lesson of night is not simply to sleep, but to slow, to wait, to hold space, to be at peace with not yet, to be okay with almost, to trust the light not only when it shines, but when it rests. We live in a world that values speed, brightness, visibility, but the cosmos knows better. It moves in seasons, in orbits, in long arcs of Bakome.